Hello, everyone. This is your host, Manoj Tandon. Welcome to another episode of Dark Rhino Security Confidential. And today we have another fantastic guest. We're honored to have him, Peter Warmka. Peter is a keynote speaker, author, cybersecurity insider threat consultant, founder of the Counterintelligence Institute, and an honest-to-God retired senior intelligence officer with the CIA. First one we've had on the show that we know about, but his specialization was clandestine human intelligence collection. And we're looking forward to the insights that he's going to share with us that relate back to all the work that we do in cyber and intelligence gathering and human factors, actually, that affect all this. So welcome to the show, Peter. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Manoj, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm getting very excited talking about the topics I have passion for.
Oh, that's great. Well, we got to start with one thing. We talk a lot about careers on this show, and often it's because there are a lot of people who are looking to transition into cyber, or we don't want anyone to think that they can't do it. I mean, if there's a will, there's a way to make it happen. But one place we can talk about cyber careers, but one thing we don't know anything about, if you can enlighten us, is how do you become a CIA intelligence officer? Like, what's the career path for that? And this is more a curiosity than anything else. Do you apply for it, or how does this work?
Well, it's an amazing. I guess it's a fascinating question, and there's a fascinating answers, and there's not one single answer, because I don't think I've ever come across an individual whose path into the CIA was identical to mine or to someone else. Because sometimes you might apply and you can apply. You can go directly to their website and apply. Other times there could be a spotter that's out there, maybe at a university, whether in the United States or overseas, and say, hey, this person might be a really, really good candidate for recruitment into the agency. And so the spotter will highlight this individual, and the agency will contact them. Or in my particular case, which is unique, I never, ever thought or had interest in working for the federal government, let alone CIA. When I got my graduate degree, I started looking for positions. I got an international management degree from Thunderbird, and I started looking for opportunities in the realm of business. I wanted to work overseas.
Okay.
And so I started working in a bank in Miami, and my goal was to go overseas. And so I started to, over time, apply for other positions, hopefully that would take me there. And there was a position advertised in the Wall Street Journal at that time that was really fascinating. It seemed to hit, all the boxes that I would check as far as an opportunity for working overseas, working in an environment with having background in economics, business, foreign language, having lived overseas and or traveled overseas. It sounded like a perfect fit. So I sent in my resume, and I got a response back asking my authorization to forward the resume onto one of their government clients.
Okay.
And I thought, this is kind of hokey. Yeah, I didn't act upon it. I put the letter underneath my night table. And later on, my wife said, whatever happened to this letter? And I said, well, I didn't respond because it just seemed like a really strange, hokey, I don't want to work for the government. And then she said, well, why didn't you send it in? Respond to it. Because I had a sign authorizing them, right? And I said, okay. I sent it in. Even though it was after the 20 days, you had 20 days to send it in. And then I was 2 weeks after that, I'm coming home from work, and my wife tells me when I get home, they called you from Washington. I said, who? They wouldn't say, but they're going to call back at 6 p.m. And so in those days, we had landlines, not cell phones. And so I get the phone call right at 6 o'clock, and we were on the phone for a good hour and 15 minutes. They identified themselves from the get-go as the CIA, and we had a nice chat. More one-sided, asking questions of me, I think, to see whether or not there was anything in my background that could pose a problem from a security standpoint of being able to pass a background investigation and be able to get a clearance. But it was intriguing And they asked if I would want to pursue a potential opportunity. They said he had a lot of different positions for individuals to work overseas, not just domestic. I said, sure, I wanted to. So they forwarded me a packet of information, literally in a manila envelope, probably about 4 inches thick, with everything you can imagine. I filled all that out and I sent it in. And then I was called to Washington for a series of interviews, and I really found the prospective job as fascinating. So even though I never thought about working for the government, I did not pursue trying to apply for the agency. They basically got to me in another fashion, and so they use those type of techniques. I wouldn't be able to give you percentages of what percent actually applies directly. There are quite a few people that apply and never hear, but that's how I got in.
That's so fascinating. Then tell us a little bit about how did you end up in the human intelligence business? You were working in banking, you have a management degree, and now you're into human intelligence gathering. Was that a choice? Like when you join the Army, you get a roster of positions that you can get into, or is it something that they assign to you and you develop?
Well, I think a lot of that is based upon their assessment of you. They do a lot of different types of, they have a lot of assessment tools. And I think at the end of the day, they look at a number of things which could make you attractive as a potential humanter, a collector. Because, we have people on the other side that are, a lot of people involved in analysis, collecting of open source and using intelligence and coming up and writing up products for, the consumers of intelligence. I would not have any interest in that naturally, but they never really told me, hey, you can choose this or that. Based on their assessment, they found that I would be a good candidate for their HUMINT program. And so it requires somebody who is interesting. You would think that we would be very extroverted, but I found a lot of people in my cadre of individuals that do this. A lot of people are sort of on the border between introverts and extroverts.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's amazing. Why, I do not know, but we're kind of like on that border. I think I'm more of an introvert with a tendency at times to be extroverted and outgoing, but it's only if I have a specific, let's say, target or mission. I don't like to go out in general and go to, social events or go to cocktail parties. I don't like it. It exhausts me. I'd rather stay at home reading a good book.
Hey,
but if I'm told, hey, there's this event and we want you to go because there is a particular target or two there, try to meet them. That to me it just totally changes. Then I go in there for the hunt. I'm focused. I look for the target. I find a way to begin to speak with the target, and I develop, the onset of a relationship, potentially with that target. It's just different. You just turn it on. You turn it on or turn it off. For me, at least.
So let me ask you one of the stupidest questions, but I know listeners are going to be wondering this thing. So I'm going to ask it. How hard is it to convince someone to do some things in our interest that may put their life in jeopardy, actually, in their nation that they're working in or are a part of?
Oh, it's a very good question. It's not a stupid question. It's not very hard. Okay.
Really?
It's surprisingly not very hard. Part of it depends on the culture in which this individual is coming from, right? And there are some places in the world where it's very, very easy, and other places in the world where it's more and more difficult and it takes longer. What is crucial in most cases is developing the relationship with that individual that you're trying to recruit to the point of they trust you more than anybody else. They trust you more than their family members. They trust you more than their significant other. They trust you, and it's based on this trust. Really, if you're not building this trust with that individual, it's very difficult that you're going to be able to pitch them and they're going to say yes, unless they're pure mercenaries, right? If what you're giving them is say, I'm going to give this is what I want you to do. This is what I can compensate you with. But that's very rare. And that's the type of individual that you got to be very, very careful with. Because if they're mercenaries, they're working for you one day, they'll throw you under the bus another day. to someone who was paying more. So most of our particular recruitment cases, and all of mine, of course, dealt with building that trust with an individual, and that's over time, and just as importantly, getting to know them, their motivations, their vulnerabilities, really know what buttons to push to get them. Manipulation, this sounds like an ugly word, but it's, we all manipulate people. Our children manipulate us. Manipulation.
Big time. That's right? The best example there is.
We do. So, but it's manipulation. As an intelligence officer, your goal is to recruit an individual who can provide you with or facilitate access to that intelligence that you need for your country, for its national interests. Of course, you don't want to put your source, the individual you're trying to recruit, you don't want to put them in harm's way. You want to protect them, and we use a lot of different measures to protect them. Unfortunately, there have been cases, I have not been involved in any, fortunately, but there have been cases when individuals have suffered consequences for protecting their country.
I think that goes without saying. I forget the gentleman who wrote the book, The Puzzle Palace, but he talked about this as well quite a bit. So it just goes with the territory. You do enough cases, there's going to be a couple that are going to go bad.
But we try to do everything possible to protect the individual. It's not only to protect them, but it's to protect our sources and methods, is to protect the information that we're acquiring. And sometimes we have to train and some people are automatically very savvy when it comes to understanding security, what they can and cannot do, what measures they need to put in place. Other ones are coachable. Sometimes we have to teach them, this is how we're going to conduct our meetings, or however we're passing that information to us from them, how we're going to do it to make sure that it's done in such a way that it's very, very secure, and they don't have to worry. If we follow these security protocols, really don't have to worry that they're going to be compromised. We measure that risk, and typically there's times when the risk might be too high, and we say, no, we're not going to pursue this because it's too risky to you. Or if they say that they can do something, we'll have them explain to us, okay, how are you planning to do this? And walk us through that, so that if they're doing something that we feel is just way too risky, we'll say, no, stand down from that. So the security is always in our mind, and especially for me, it's always in my mind, and really happy that nothing's ever happened in the cases that I ran regarding jeopardizing the security of the individuals who work for me. And that to me is very, very important, because I would feel very bad if something would have happened.
I can completely understand. I think everyone could. So now you're out, you're retired, and you started the Counterintelligence Institute. I mean, it sounds like you got right back in the game. So what is the mission there? What are you guys doing at the Counterintelligence Institute?
Well, you're right. When I retired, I thought I was really retiring. That was my plan. But then when I started to see all these, hear about all these data breaches that were taking place worldwide against every type of organization, sizes of organization, they were just growing in quantity and quality of the breaches. And what really struck me, according to some of the reports, like IBM puts out an annual report, over 90% of successful data breaches start or initiated with some form of human hacking, social engineering. I interchange these terms. Human hacking is more, I think, we can see it more, we can understand it more than social engineering. A lot of people, if I ask them, hey, do you know what social engineering is? And they say yes. And then I start asking questions. They have no idea. So it's amazing that still today, people don't understand what social engineering is about. I call it human hacking because it's more graphic in a sense of understanding that we're trying to hack into the mind of an individual. If we are trying to manipulate,
is that a rabbit hole? I think that to go down, because there's levels of human hacking. Then I remember seeing, when we were researching a little bit about you, you did a TED talk where you actually went through someone's trash and you pulled out and you pulled out all the things, and you got to know who their doctor was and what prescriptions they were on, what their love interests were, everything from the trash, right? But which people don't throw out your trash, but that I would imagine is an extreme level if you're really targeting somebody. There's got to be, when IBM put out that report, they probably didn't put out what kind of hacking or what level of engineering was being done on that targeted individual.
Right, it's across the board. There's so many different things. And they'll say today, typically, that the biggest form of, data breaches that are caused by the human factor is through phishing. I mean, by quantity, yes. But when I focused on, especially as a former intelligence officer, when I speak to this sort of threat, the threat actors are various, whether it's an intelligence service, a criminal group, an industrial competitor, an activist, or a lone wolf. There's a variety of threat actors, but at the end of the day, the really professional ones are going to take this. We do take it to a much higher level than the basic, phishing campaign where you have the same email that goes out to thousands of people, and they're just, they're going by a certain percentage that's going to take the bait. No pun intended, but there are, right. It works right at that level. But if we're talking about the average data breach last year, 2022. Cost of a data breach, I think worldwide for an average organization was about 4.6 million, and I think for a U.S. organization it was 9.6. Wow.
Yeah, that's average. That sounds about right. I think we have a presentation slide somewhere that's right in that ballpark. It talks about those numbers.
But what's even scarier, in my opinion, is that the vast majority of data breaches are not reported. So we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg when we talk about what is this costing. What is it costing our economy, let's say, or a nation, because so many of the data breaches aren't reported? Because think about, why would a company report a data breach if they don't have to? If they legally have to, that's one thing, right?
Right. And even then, they sometimes find ways not to do it. But
right. So there's a lot more problems with this than we're aware of, that people are aware of. And so this is a growing problem. And I think one of the reasons why it continues to grow, there are technical controls, there are technical deficiencies, but one of the aspects that, in my opinion, is not given enough attention is the fact that a lot of these breaches are happening because of the manipulation of insiders, right? And so, even if you look at, we probably have had previously individuals on your show who talk about insider threats. Yeah. That's a word that goes out, and some companies are focusing on it. Other ones are still a little bit behind, but even those that are focusing on it, I think a lot of the focus is on that internal threat that somehow is created internally, and not looking at that threat that can come from outside the organization, how these external threat actors can target the insiders of that company, who turn them into threats, because they would not be threats otherwise, but because they are targeted and manipulated, they become threats.
You're 1,000%, if there's such a thing, correct on this. And you've hit a little bit of a nerve, because it's something that we talk about a lot with our clients. And we always say that, cybersecurity is not a technology problem. It's just not. It is a business problem. It's a problem of human behavior, right? And you can put all the technology in the world out there, but if I walk in through your front door and you open that door for me and even lay out the red carpet in some instances, what are your controls? And there's umpteen examples of it. And I think you used one about a woman who liked puppies, I think it was, and she got socially engineered. Give us some, when people think of this, and I'm going to ask you about some techniques and approaches, but also approaches first and then techniques. When people think of insider threats, a lot of the things is that this must be an evil person, that they have ill intent towards the organization in their heart. And that's not necessarily the case usually.
No, you're absolutely right. I think what I want to start with, though, is a quick mention. I think one of our problems in this industry is using the term cybersecurity. I think we should probably get rid of it. I think it tends to have us believe that it's something that's intangible, that it's through the networks and it's technology.
What would you use?
I think I would just maybe use the term data security, because it's not. Yeah, InfoSec, because there's so many other ways, and we can talk about a number of them later on, where I can get into an organization and obtain a considerable amount of information, and it will never appear as a data breach. It was never through the networks. There are other ways to get the information than to have to hack into the network to get the data. So, I mean, and those things are typically not discussed. Even if you look at a typical cybersecurity certificate, let's say, right? Certification programs.
Yep.
How much of that is devoted to social engineering? Very little. It's giving very little importance. And I mean, to me, it's just amazing, because this is such a growing problem. You hear people talking about, social engineering and the human factor, but within the training of our experts, future experts in this industry, they don't seem to be getting the enough attention of this aspect of the problem, in my opinion.
I'll tell you, let's take a little side detour here. So personally, I am on the advisory board in the computer science department at Slippery Rock University, and for the cybersecurity program. And we've actually had these exact discussions of what you're talking about, that a lot of it is on technology, but where is getting into the mind of the hacker? Where's understanding your adversary? I think the challenge there is that as technicians, largely, right, as technical operators, that's a topic that is not something that's within our frame of reference. So if you were going to do that, and I hate to put you on the spot, but if you were going to have our modern cybersecurity or information security professionals get into the mind of a hacker, what elements would that training involve? What do they need to learn about?
Okay, there's a lot of different motivations for a hacker. Okay, a lot of them. Let me just mention a few. One could be revenge. Right.
Okay.
Actually, that's one of the biggest motivating, or one of the most powerful factors of recruiting somebody to actually breach the security of their organization and provide information, whether it's to a criminal or to an intelligence service, is they're wanting to get revenge against their employer.
Really?
Believe it or not. Oh, yeah. It's very strong. It is very, very strong. Another one is ego. Okay. They believe they're smarter than anybody else. And the fact that they're able to do this, they feel, power, ego, that they can outsmart anybody else in their company or their organization, and undertaking, a breach or being able to hack, into a company. So ego is very, very strong. So fulfilling this sense of, I can do anything I want to. I'm very smart. Another one, of course, if we're dealing with an intelligence service, is going to be loyalty, patriotism. Think about that. There's a lot of hacking going on by intelligence services. And and just as we, myself as a former CIA officer and my colleagues, we were very patriotic. It's at the core, not the only motivation, but a strong motivation across the board. We are doing this for our nation. This is how we justify it. This is what motivates us. If you're dealing with the Chinese and intelligence service, the Iranian, Russian, I'm sure that patriotism is also a strong motivating factor for them. There's the joy, somewhat similar to ego, but the joy of having a challenge. Hacking is a challenge,
Oh, yeah. To see if it can be done. Can you get in somewhere where, you're going to show them?
Yeah. And sometimes it requires a lot of creativity. So it's not like you just use necessarily the same tool every single time, but going against harder and harder targets and having to be very creative in doing that. It's self-satisfying when you take on that challenge and accomplish that. It could be there are people that just get turned on by pure manipulation, narcissists, right? I mean, I'm not saying that, but I mean, there could be people that they just love the fact that they're people that are vulnerable and they can manipulate them, not caring about you asked me earlier about, how we, care about protecting the sources. There are a lot of these hackers that they really don't care, right? What happens to that organization and down the road, what happens to that individual that they may have manipulated. But probably across the board, one of the most important motivations is going to be monetary, especially if you're dealing with criminal organizations, right? It's going to be.
We would put that as in our experience, especially with phishing and ransomware and extortion, those three things. It's no different than someone robbing the stagecoaches of yesteryear.
Yeah, I think those money is definitely number one, and money is usually the strongest. But a lot of times you're going to see not just money; you're going to see it maybe combined with some of these other factors that I mentioned, like even the sources that we would recruit. Hardly ever is it just money. A lot of times there's some other aspect that combined with money, it makes it even stronger for that individual to have this motivation to undertake, trying to hack. So I think that these are the different psychological factors. How you particularly study them and be able to specifically identify them for specific cases, not that easy. But I think having at least an understanding about why an organization would be targeted is important. So what's the motivation of the hacker? Is it are they trying to get this information for their country, to help their country? Are they trying to get this information just to be able to, to get money? Or is it someone who is trying to get back at a particular organization? I mean, these are all factors, okay, that can motivate a hacker.
And Peter, when you put it this way, it expands the field of vulnerabilities exponentially.
It does.
Right? Because now, in terms of, I'll tell you, and I'm going to generalize, it doesn't apply to everybody, but in general, most organizations, when they're thinking about risk, they're thinking about, okay, if I get hacked, how does this going to affect me legally? How is it going to affect me financially? And whether that be a disruption in their revenue stream or that be a disruption in lost sales, production, whatever the case may be, or they're thinking in terms of what their loss to their brand and things like that may be. But they're not assessing, well, I may be a conduit to something much bigger.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
If I want to get into, I want to be careful because I don't want to inadvertently give away a lot of approaches. We're like, well, that's a good idea. Let's do it. But if I want to get into a bigger fish, and I'll generalize it, right? And they're pretty solid, and I don't want to hurt them just now. I want to lie low and wait, kind of spread my tentacles, sit there, wait for the opportune time. Maybe I'll sell that intrusion to somebody on the black market, and they can do with it whatever the heck they want to go do with it. That conduit may be a source of much smaller players out there that are easy to get to and are not even thinking that they have human vulnerabilities that could open these doors.
No, you're absolutely right, because a lot of we refer to them as hard targets versus soft targets, right? Those big fish are typically considered, harder targets. Hopefully they should, not always, but hopefully they should be harder targets. But the ones that are softer targets are typically these organizations that think, hey, why would anybody target me? I don't have much to offer a criminal group and nothing to offer an intelligence service, but not realizing that they can be a conduit to that larger fish because they have some sort of relationship with that harder target. And I think it was at least in 2021, I think 52% of data breaches of harder targets was actually utilizing the softer targets.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So using the vendor, some organization had a relationship with that organization that they use as a conduit to get there. So it's a growing problem. And that's
So
why
that's third party risk. I 52%. I didn't realize it was that large. If it, that number should give anyone listening a pause for concern, and to think about third party risk in very different ways.
Yeah. I mean, just think about it. I mean, you heard of, not to get off track here, but the Panama Papers?
I don't know of them directly. I've heard the term, but what was the whole story?
I mean, it's a law firm based in Panama that had branches throughout the world, and they specialize in setting up offshore companies, basically to hide who the true owners of money was, right across the board. So this organization it's unclear whether it was hacked into, this law firm hacked into, or somebody from the inside provided the information, but it really disclosed so much information about all their clients that included top political figures around the world. But the reason being, people don't think of a law firm as, why hack a law firm? You hack into a law firm and you have access to some of the most important information that their clients are providing. So it's not only getting that information that the law firm has, but potentially even leveraging the access, the conduit of that law firm to get into, so you have law firms, you have consultancy firms, you have, CPA firms, you have, staffing companies that have particular access to companies. You have, outsourced IT management firms. Think about your typically outsourced IT management firms, how many clients they have access to. So
tons of them.
I mean, so it's just,
recently there's been a couple cases with that. I mean, Okta got hacked because they had a contractor whose laptop was compromised. I'm generalizing, but
yeah. So, I mean, and when I speak about this topic, I kind of bring that out and I say, listen, no one should consider that they would not be a target. We are all potential targets out there, and we can all potentially be utilized to get to the bigger fish. So we all have to have our guard up, and we have to be very, very cautious, and we have to, institute for our employees, security awareness, because it's not just what can happen to us, but more importantly, how we can be used to, as you mentioned earlier, create even more, a bigger problem that we might be somehow responsible for.
So how do you protect against something this broad? You mentioned employee awareness, but how does an organization actually do this and have some measure of success?
Well, when I focus on security awareness, the biggest, just in my opinion, there are two big areas here that we need to educate the company and their employees on. One is the information that they put out there in the public realm, both as companies and as individuals. And understanding, and when I give presentations, I show a lot of different examples of things that people put out there, companies that put out there, that can be leveraged by human hackers, that actually make them more vulnerable. And the companies don't realize how that information can be utilized, but it is being utilized. So, whether they're putting it up on their website, they're putting it on their social media, they're putting it out via public service, PR announcements, or employees that are posting pictures online of themselves in the workplace. I mean, I just show so many different examples of information that's picked up by, this kind of like the first.
Please give us some examples.
First phase of human hacking is going to be collecting that open source, that OSINT, right? Information. Because I want to maximize my potential success, minimize any compromise. So it's just like kidnapping somebody, right? You don't just all of a sudden go out there, well, let's go try to find this person and kidnap them. You're going to study that target. You're going to know their every movement. And you're going to decide, right here is where I'm going to try to intercept this individual because of all this, this research I've done. So same way here, we're going to use open source, OSINT, which is so readily available. I could be in Beijing right now on my laptop in the Starbucks and looking at your company or anybody's company and start collecting, not just what's on the website, but even going, okay, I'll give you a few examples. Going to Glassdoor. I think all of you understand Glassdoor.
Yeah, it's where everybody goes to bitch about something.
Right. So I can learn about, what is the morale within a company? Are employees happy? They feel like they're being treated well, there are great opportunities, or they feel like the management sucks, that they're just being worked to death. The benefits are terrible. It's just, not transparent. They hate it. Where people are not happy or they're disgruntled, it's much easier to actually target them and motivate them to take revenge. Okay. For example, there's a lot of different, I found detailed floor plans that have been uploaded to the internet of companies. If I wanted to do an intrusion, I found documents, employee benefit packages, IT user guides that have been uploaded to the internet. All you got to do is do a search of the company in PDF. It'll be amazed by what type of documents you may find on the internet. Pictures of employees in the workplace, with their badges. Where do they wear their badges? What's on their computer screen at the particular time, the computer peripheral equipment that I can see in the background. As I mentioned, their badges, which I can, we can actually then manufacture badges for flash purposes. We can also learn about, I'm just trying to, there's a lot of different things when it comes to the open source. But for me, the most important aspect of open source is identifying potential insider candidates. Okay. Because in the old days, when I was out in the field, beginning of my career, it's like, okay, you have a target organization because there's information there that you want to get to. And trying to find out the who's who within that organization, getting the diagram, the hierarchical, diagram is very difficult. When you got that, it's wow, this is a starting point. Now I can learn about, who is in the organization, what they have access to, the relationships. Don't need that. I can just get on the internet and the go-to place. What is your idea? What's the number one place that we can use to identify insider target candidates? Any idea?
Yeah. You know what? I would be going to Instagram and Facebook and seeing what people are interested in. And that might tell me a little bit about the vulnerabilities. Because
absolutely. That's the second stage.
Most. Oh, okay. So
First stage, LinkedIn. Okay. LinkedIn is golden resource. Because with the search bar on the upper left-hand corner, you can plug in the name of the company and people, and that will pull up all the people that have had, that company in their professional history. Then all you got to do is insert current. It means currently work for that company. Then that will greatly reduce it. Then, depending on what you're looking for, you can put in the title of the individual, the geographic location, or maybe the university that they went to, and you can whittle this down to a very manageable hit list, if you want to call it that, or target list of individuals, right? And then based on that, so starting with LinkedIn, look at all of that information you got about their academic and professional background, their certifications that they have, the licenses that they have, even their volunteer work. What do they have a passion for outside of their job, right? Then we go on to those other ones that you mentioned. Facebook, learn all about your hobbies, your interests, your favorite foods, favorite restaurants, where you travel to, who did you travel with, where are you planning to travel in the future. Go on to Instagram, learn about your pattern of life, because people are going out, taking a picture. I'm here. I learned their routine, because learning their routine, their pattern gives me an opportunity of being able to predict where they're going to be at what time if I want to actually bump them. Okay. Then I can learn from their Twitter. I love it. Here I get into their mind.
Okay.
What are they thinking? Right? What are their political leanings, religious convictions that they have? What are their pet peeves? I can learn so much from Twitter. And then, of course, there's other ones there. You got all these other platforms, right? But my favorite would be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as far as those four that I would use, first of all, to target and assess that individual, learn about their motivations, learn about their vulnerabilities, and create this personality assessment profile based on what I can find about them on social media. Now, you're younger than me. I am a vintage, and I remember the world before internet. I remember the world before social media. How many people really knew you? Okay, a couple dozen before then.
Yeah, it would have to be close people.
Now, I mean, we have, we all have our profiles out there, multiple profiles, and there's like 4.9 billion users of social media on the platform. So just think about, I don't have to invite you out for a coffee or lunch to get to know you. I can sit back once again from my computer in Beijing, and I can collect all this information about you.
Oh yeah, and in my case, being a podcast host doesn't help the situation much either. So
yeah. So then with that, that's kind of like the collection phase and targeting of individuals, and then I can develop a variety of different types of ploys, social engineering techniques to actually target them, try to manipulate them. Okay.
So would at that point, so you would then go into the phase of crafting what the compromise plan is. And
Right.
and that could be, it could be anything. I guess it could be approaching me with a phishing email on a topic that I care about, maybe.
Right. In this
Or-
case, we would talk about it being directly spear phishing because I'm creating that message that's probably going to one specific individual. And if we're talking about the average data breach worldwide costing 4.6 million or 9.6 million in the United States, we can, that's money. We can invest a little bit of time, and it doesn't take much to target specific individuals. So we can create that email. We can we can befriend you on LinkedIn or another social media platform. And just as an email, these communication, this means to communicate, connect online in those platforms that also will carry that malicious link or will carry that malicious attachment.
But doesn't that give up your identity?
No, I can create a fake profile. So easy. There's so many fake profiles out there. I come across them every day. I think LinkedIn today has almost 800 million profiles. And if we were just to say a very conservative estimate, 10% of them are fake or 5% of them are fake.
Wow.
Think about how many, and I'm not exaggerating. There's a lot of fake profiles out there. They're so easy to set up. I kind of run through in my training. I run through, how easy it is to set up these profiles and how you can set them up with them being very difficult, very, very difficult for LinkedIn's algorithms or even someone who's very savvy to be able to detect that they're fakes. But then there's so many that are not quite that professional. And what are the things you should be looking for when you're able to, when you get this invitation from someone you don't know? And but this is even changing because before I would mention, okay, you got that photograph, right? On a LinkedIn, you could do a reverse image search, right? And if you see that image and there's someone else's name, that's a red flag, right? Or if you're reading through the profile and some of the stuff is not well written, because a lot of this is coming in from people that are not necessarily have English as a native language. So you can see these sort of things that just don't quite make sense or are a little bit weird, or it's too perfect. Someone has actually cut and paste the narrative from some other, personas on LinkedIn or other parts of the web. But now think about it. We got two different things when we're talking about advanced AI technology that changes the game. With pictures now, these pictures can be computer generated and they're almost flawless. So we can create a new profile where a personality where that picture is, it's not taken from someone else. That where it can be discovered. Oh, that picture, is from another person. This is a fake profile. Or where that via the chat GPT, where you can create narratives now that are really well done. So these individuals, I'm sure they're doing it already, who are writing these profiles, fake profiles, they're already using these tools to enhance the appearance of these fake profiles. And so I tell people they got to be very, very careful when they receive an incoming request for a connection. You can't go by, they had over 500 connections. That must be legit. Now that doesn't mean anything. They have 40 or 50 or 60 endorsements from people. That doesn't mean anything. People will endorse people that they don't know. Because LinkedIn will say, would you like to endorse Sally Smith for XYZ? Sure, right? You want to be helpful, even though they don't know Sally Smith. And Sally Smith is probably a fake anyway. Okay, so what about, they can incorporate in their profile when they make this fake profile. If I wanted to target you, for example, if I know you've gone to the university, why don't I put the same university that you went to? Why don't I put, some other aspect in my profile that we have a commonality with? You're more likely to connect with me. And when I then beginning to have a dialogue with you, it's great. We already, developed that rapport. Just like if you're in another side of the country driving, and let's say you're from Ohio, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's say you're in Ohio and all of a sudden you're in, I don't know, Wyoming. You happen to see a car from Ohio. You automatically feel this connection with that person, even, right? Because you have a commonality there. So same thing, people that develop these fake profiles will develop them with some commonality with the target. And so the target feels even more, the rapport that's built. And then there's a number of different things that this individual could do. They could be using you to gain access to a bigger fish, someone that they maybe want to approach. But that person, they see that you're a mutual connection already with that target. They're more likely to accept. So don't go by number of contacts. Don't go by mutual connections. Don't go by number of endorsements. I mean, all these things, they don't mean anything when it comes to validating whether or not this persona is real. We have to be much more savvy when it comes to, if we're going to accept that invitation, we gotta do a much more due diligence.
Wow. So you can't trust anything. So, the thing is that this is a ubiquitous, though, like LinkedIn as a platform in a professional environment. It's a tool that people rely on to some degree, right?
Well, you're right. I mean, and people tend to get, when I speak about these things, they get a little bit paranoid, and I say, I'm hoping you're paranoid. Skeptic, a little bit of paranoia is healthy. We have to turn that into, how are we going to act now going forward with these things? Does that mean that we are going to be so suspicious of everything and we're not going to accept any connections? No, we should be, we should look at and try to judge whether or not this is a person that we want to have join our network and vice versa. But what comes more important is what happens next. So if we are approached, right, the danger is not that we are maybe in a network of someone who might be a malicious actor. The danger is when we're approached now and asked to do something. We're asked to undertake an action. This is where the art of human hacking comes to the threshold of when a hacker is asking somebody to undertake an action, whether it's providing information, whether it's to click on a link, whether it's to open an attachment, whether it's to, whatever they're being asked to do, whether it's to transfer money out of the account, right? We can talk about
another aspect. Yeah, I can tell you that we've had clients that unfortunately came to us after they had willingly sent funds. Mm-hmm. They got social engineered to the point where, they looked at the organization, they found the types of communique that are sent to, how purchase orders are structured. They created a completely legitimate person to send money to. And organizations have actually followed through that, just as a matter of course. Oh yeah, this is a purchase order. We bought this thing from person X, and send them a check for $50,000.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of my favorite techniques for social engineering is vishing. You probably heard of vishing, but for your audience that maybe is not aware of it, it's when a social engineer will utilize the telephone and pretend to be whoever they want to be, right? To enhance their credibility, they will spoof the caller ID, okay? And so, for example, this could be done for many different reasons. Maybe it's calling somebody up, pretending to be somebody who's in some position of authority, and then asking, the recipient of the call for information. And they see the call ID coming in is from that person. Why shouldn't I trust that it's coming from that person? They might even, use that to call in to, pretending to be the boss, and instructing an employee, we need to make this urgent transfer to this client. It wasn't done. Make this now. And to even now, the next level of this, which has just happened over the last 3 years, where you're going to see more of it, is actually the deep fake voice cloning. Okay. Where it's not only the caller ID that we're spoofing, it's also that voice of that boss. So you see the number coming in. Oh, the boss is calling me. I listen to it, or I speak with the boss. It's his voice, his or her voice. This has been done, and there's been companies that have suffered from this. One of the biggest was in 2020. I think it was $35 million. Wow! That bank manager sent out from the bank, some client to transferred out because they believed. I mean, it was the voice of the client that was giving them the instructions. So, I mean, and there's a lot of these that are not reported, of course. So, but this is the growth, this is where we're going. So this
is incredible. I'll tell you, Peter, there's so many more topics here. We haven't even scratched the surface, and we're already at the hour, and we've got to have you back because we didn't even get to protect, verify, and trust and that whole thing. But I absolutely want to talk about your book that's coming out.
Oh, it's actually out.
I really want to talk about that. And then you got to come back for a part 2, and we got to pick up right at this point. And
Okay.
But tell us about the book. It's coming out in a couple weeks, right?
No. Actually, the book came out already. It's coming out. It's already available. And let me see. I have a copy of it here. For those of you who are visual, Confessions of a CIA Spy, The Art of Human Hacking. Okay. That's not a picture of me, but it could be. All right. But people see the cover, they might think it's fiction, but it's not. This is actually, I wrote this book based on what I've seen working as an intelligence officer, the whole psychology behind, how we target some of the things I just mentioned to you, how we target an organization, how we, the importance of identifying that insider, sizing them up via their motivations and vulnerabilities, and then knowing, how do we leverage this? And so I talk about this in the world of human hacking today, not just intelligence, but in services, but across the board, no matter who the threat actor is, these techniques that are used. And then, more importantly, providing tips about how we as individuals and organizations can protect themselves from this type of hacking. And I think, one of the most important things when we talk about, when I speak to organizations, this security awareness training, which we'll talk more about next time when you have me back.
Absolutely. We want you back. I mean, there were like 15 questions here in total. I think we got through 3 of them. So I just want to highlight that so often the security awareness training it's compliance training. It's sort of this check the box exercise, and this is unfortunately the mindset where companies are thinking, well, we got to just, check the box, maybe for insurance purposes as well. And they pass this on to their employees. The employees see it as compliance. I got to watch these cheesy videos. I got to answer a few questions, and I get my 70%. I can print out my certificate. I'm good for a year. But you see how rapidly these things are changing. We have to be kept abreast of these types of, and I think one way to get your employees on board is to offer this not only for the benefit of the company, but for the benefit of the employees. If they're aware of the security, concerns and how they're vulnerable to themselves and how this can help protect them against, identity theft, protect them against, someone trying to get into their own bank accounts, they can see the value, and that will carry over to the organization. So that's the type of things that I'm focusing on. That's a really cool concept. If you make the individual more secure, and you form an individual habit, that might be the best way to form a corporate habit.
Yeah, it's their buy-in. They'll see it as benefiting the organization as well, because once they understand the value.
That's fantastic. That's worth the price of admission. It was a way in which I had not thought about this. Mm-hmm. But wow, Peter, I tell you, you're a little scary, but fantastic. And we need to get you back. I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. And how do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you, or they want to get you scheduled for training, or get involved with you? How do they do that?
Sure. One of the best points of contact would be getting on my website, which is Counterintelligence-Institute.com, or you can do a search for my name, Peter Warmka, on LinkedIn, and it will pull up a lot of information as well as links to the website. So, the website, LinkedIn are probably the easiest ways to get to me. On my website, there's also additional information, videos. There's information about the programs that I have. And also, I'll forward to you, but I do have a nice speaker one sheet that really shows as a brochure all this information that I would like to
send it to us, and we'll put it in the show notes. So that
excellent. Okay, we'll do.
We'll do that for sure. It's fascinating. I think people could really use the advice you're offering here and the insights, because it's mind opening as to how large the vulnerabilities are when you look at the human hacking side of it and go beyond what traditionally is the technical aspects of getting into an organization. Mm-hmm. So Peter, thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation.
It's great, and greetings to all of your listeners, and I look forward to another opportunity to speak. And if you have questions that you want to forward directly to me or to your host here, forward them, because we are going to be back together very shortly.
Absolutely, we are. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Have a good day.